Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life. Electric word, life, it means forever, and that's a mighty long time. But I'm here to tell you, there's something else. The afterworld. A world of never-ending happiness. You can always see the sun, day or night. So when you call up that shrink in Beverly Hills, you know the one. Doctor, everything will be alright.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Project Gen X podcast. I am one of your hosts, Alan Smith, along with...
I am Prince. I mean Big Dave.
And you are Funky. And on today's podcast, we are gathered here today to celebrate this thing called life.
And if the elevator brings you down,
go crazy one time. Yes, we're going to be talking about the 1994 movie Purple Rain, as well as the album Purple Rain. And, of course, the Purple One himself, Mr. Prince Nelson, R.I.P.
I got to see Prince live.
Yeah, you suck. That's one of the ones I never got to see that I was trying to get tickets to before he died.
I got to see him at Bridgestone. He played in the round, and we were in a box.
Nice.
And we snuck into the box.
He was in a round, and you were in a box.
Yep. And we had seats up in the nosebleed, and we snuck into the box, thanks to some friends.
Nice. Yeah, we covered last year. We covered Thriller, Michael Jackson's album.
Yeah.
And I think I said then that, and it's very true, if 1983 belonged to Michael Jackson, 1984 belonged to Prince.
Yeah.
I mean, no ifs, ands, buts about it, because he was everywhere. He was on your radio. He was on MTV. He was on in your movie theater. I mean, it was just, he was everywhere.
What's crazy is this was like his 6th album or something like that.
Let's see. It most definitely was not his first album. Let's see here. I think it was either 4 or 5. Because he had a self-titled Prince. And I know Controversy was in there. And 1999 was before this. Let's see here. Where is his...
Purple Rain is the 6th studio album.
6th? Okay.
By Prince. But it was the first time that he had, like, a band. It wasn't a solo thing. It was The Revolution.
Okay, so his first album was For You. His second one was the self-titled Prince.
Yeah.
Then there was Dirty Mind, then Controversy, then 1999, and then Purple Rain. And this was the first album that he did with The Revolution.
Right.
So, yeah, that's... where do we even begin? Do we start with Prince? Do we talk about the movie? Do we talk about let's start with the movie.
Okay.
So Purple Rain was released in, when was it released? July 27th, 1984. So this was, August has typically been a dumping ground for, kind of like January and February and, in the wintertime. So it managed to get out during the window, the blockbuster window, basically, and even in 1984 terms, big year for me. Go back, we have an episode called "The Films of 1984." It's from 20. I can't remember if it's from 2020 or 2020. It was either our first or second year. I think it was our first year. And to look at all the movies that were released in 1984, it's crazy.
Yeah,
and this one's right there with them. I'm going to be honest. I watched this last night. First off, it is impossible to find this movie on anything. It's not anything streaming. I know it's available, like that kind of stuff. I really was surprised, since it's a Warner Brothers movie.
It wasn't on Max.
It wasn't on Max.
Yeah.
I was really surprised. Now, I know that Prince, when he was alive, and his estate, are a very litigious bunch. and
Yeah.
he very much gatekept, I guess, his music and movies and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he really wanted control over all of it.
Yeah.
You know, to make sure that it didn't, not only to make sure that he was getting his just due out of it, both financially as well as credit wise, but also just to make sure that it wasn't used for anything that he didn't approve of, you know, that kind of stuff. So I'm sure that probably goes into this a little bit of why it's not available,
Yeah.
you know, streaming somewhere. There are DVD and Blu-ray versions of it that are out there. Honestly, when I watched this movie last night, and I watched Ghostbusters in this back to back. Okay, talk about a change in like a kind of a change in tone of stuff.
That's why I watched them on two separate nights. I watched this first, and then I watched Ghostbusters the night after.
I had never seen this movie from beginning to end.
Are you kidding
at
me?
one time. I had seen the entire movie. There was nothing in this that I had not seen. Okay.
Yeah.
But I had never sat down and watched it from beginning to end.
Okay.
Until last night. This movie is almost 2 hours long.
Yes, it is.
An hour and 52 minutes or something like that.
And
the last half hour is just a Prince concert. That's all it is. Which I'm not complaining about.
No.
But I was like, damn, no, seriously. This last half hour of this movie is just a Prince concert. So
this movie has a short story in the middle of a music video and a concert performance.
Oh, this movie has a short story between multiple music videos and a concert performance.
Yeah, it's basically a 2-hour music video and concert.
Which was one of the things that surprised me because, again, seeing the music videos for When Doves Cry and Take Me With You and Purple Rain and Let's Go Crazy, all of this, and knowing that it was from this movie, I had always just kind of assumed that it was just clips from the movie that were in. No. These were fully produced music videos
that had clips of the movie in it.
That did have clips of the movie, but a lot of the stuff that's in the movie is just music video. Yeah. And I'm not talking about performance. I'm talking about like, oh, this is not stuff that actually happened in the movie. This is all of a sudden the movie stops, this music video plays, and they shot stuff specifically for this movie with Prince and with Apollonia.
Yeah.
That has never appeared in the movie whatsoever.
Yep.
It's like, no, seriously, this is the exact video I saw on MTV. It's just right here in the middle of this kind of movie.
Yeah.
Which, good on Prince, dude. Guy knew how to market. You know, that is.
Well, a big portion of it was his manager at the time.
Yeah.
The manager is the one who kind of helped write the movie and made it happen.
This movie, I appreciate this movie for the kitsch of what it is, okay? A lot of people have the wrong idea about this movie of like it's some kind of like autobiographical Prince story.
No, it's not.
It's not in the slightest. There are elements. Yeah, it's in Minneapolis. It's him playing, this genius kind of like avant-garde pop, performer, musician who had a dad who was a jazz musician, which he did. His dad was a jazz musician.
Of course, it all happened at Crystal Palace and First Avenue.
Yeah, exactly. The big difference there is a lot of people think that the deal with his parents, with the dysfunction, his dad being abusive, completely not true whatsoever.
No,
his dad actually, when he got into the music business, like helped him out quite a bit and actually wrote some songs with him and did all this kind of stuff, and like they had a really good relationship. Now, it might have been, his parents, and we're getting into some of the Prince lore here, his parents divorced when he was young, and his mom remarried, and apparently him and his stepdad did not have the best relationship.
Yeah.
The story I remember hearing was that when I think he was like 12 years old, one summer, like the summer that he was 12, his stepdad legitimately locked him in his bedroom for 6 weeks. Like, would not let him leave the bedroom.
Yeah.
And that Prince went on record as saying that he basically was locked in his bedroom with a radio and his guitar. And that's where he learned to play guitar. was that 6-week period of just there's nothing else to do in here whatsoever. And he had already played other instruments at that point, so it was just like, okay, this is where I learned to play guitar.
Yeah.
God, what an incredible guitar player! Not nearly enough credit for what he did.
When somebody interviews Eric Clapton, he goes, "What's it like?"
That story has been told about multiple people. That Clapton has been credited. Clapton said the same thing about Jimi Hendrix, and he said the same thing about Stevie Ray Vaughan.
All I'm going to say is go on YouTube and watch the
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame
for George Harrison.
Yep, they do My Guitar Gently Weeps, and Prince comes out in the most Prince way ever and does the most Prince thing ever, and then walks off stage in the most Prince way that you could. So.
And by the way, that Telecaster is in this movie.
Yeah. The yellow Telecaster that he's used forever. And you go all the way back, he had it from his first album. Yeah. I like Telecasters, but Telecasters have a very specific sound, and somehow Prince managed to make a Telecaster sound not like a Telecaster. Yeah. He made it sound like anything he wanted it to. Yeah. Just like only Prince, man. So yeah, that's kind of there is a very loose story here. One of the things I really love is that pretty much everybody in this movie uses their real name except for Prince.
Yep.
There's a couple exceptions because Clarence Williams III plays his dad, which another R.I.P. and he's been gone for a few years now. Clarence Williams III has been in a ton of stuff. I mean, like you go back and watch a whole bunch of stuff from the 70s and 80s. Then he had like a real career resurgence in the 90s, and would he would always just show up in these little, like, come on, he usually like Tales from the Hood, and stuff like, he would show up in these movies, and he played the heavy in a lot of stuff, and he kind of plays the heavy here also.
Yeah.
There's some stuff with the story in here that we're going to talk about a little later on that I'm like, oh wow, that's in there. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things I found really, really weird, and I know you did a little more research on kind of the production of this movie than I did. Was Vanity supposed to be in that role before Apollonia?
No, it was Jennifer Beals.
Okay.
Jennifer Beals was supposed to be in that role, and she passed on it because she wanted to concentrate on college.
Okay. So the weird thing is that Apollonia is in this, playing a character named Apollonia. And her girl group is called Apollonia 6. Well,
there's 3 members.
Right. But in real life, there is Vanity 6.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, the other 2 women that are in Apollonia 6 were in Vanity 6. If I'm not mistaken.
I think
it's
so.
Just that Vanity was in there instead of Apollonia.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, and I'm sure she still is, but Apollonia was gorgeous in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I forgot. I was like, I remember, but I was sitting there watching last night. I was like, man, this woman is gorgeous. And actually a good actor on top of it.
Yeah.
One of the standouts. Okay. Okay. So you had Clarence Williams III, who was an actor who did really well in this. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought Apollonia did really well in her role.
Yeah.
Do you know who I think was probably the best of everybody in this movie, though? As far as their acting?
Okay.
Jerome from the time. I started watching him. I'm like, dude, this is natural for him. Like, why didn't he do more of this? This is, Morris Day, he's spotty. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's not. But every time Jerome starts talking, he's dead on every time. Well, he's delivering those lines and just...
I think that was just Jerome, though.
I know.
I think that's just who he was. I don't think he was really acting. I think he was just being Jerome.
Mm-hmm. But he was great. Great.
I love Morris Day at the time.
Dude, man. It's funny because, so what's funny is that the soundtrack...
When he grabbed that chicken head and picked her up and just body slammed her in the dumpster.
What in the world? Jerome, take care of this.
And he's like, time to go.
Dude, when he picks up that one woman throws, when Jerome does that, but then, the kid, slaps Apollonia at one point and then threatens to do it another time. Now, granted, you can look at that and be like, well, that's what he saw at home because his dad was doing the same thing. Not to excuse it, but it was kind of the cycle of abuse type thing. But yeah, there were several things in here that I was like, dang, they put that in here. That's I'll tell you the other thing that really surprised me again, and I had never seen the uncut version of this. Like when I had seen it before, it was been on television or whatever. There's that one sex scene. I guess it's the first one between him and Apollonia or whatever. Yeah. That was like, he was really getting handsy in this thing. Like
he was getting more than handsy.
I know. I was like, dude, wow, that they put that on film. Yeah. I mean, like, okay, you know, just okay. All right. No,
this movie was very.
It's definitely not a movie that would get made today.
No,
and it's definitely not have the tone of a movie like this being made today. The going through like the music that's in this, okay, because you get performances by Morris Day and the Time, you get performances by Apollonia 6, of course you get Prince or the Kid, as they call him, with the Revolution.
Well, you also get Dez and the Motivators?
Yes, yeah.
But Desmond
wound up playing with Prince.
Well, he was part of the Revolution,
right,
at one point,
right. I don't think he wasn't at this point,
no,
but he would go on to play with him later, or maybe he was with them before. Yeah, because he's on 1999.
Yeah, you're right.
He's on that. He's that first.
But you actually see his band do a performance in the movie.
Right. Yeah, he had played with Prince. That's what it was, and he wasn't a member of the Revolution though. That was yeah. It's just I was really shocked with how good the music in it.
Yeah.
Also the fact of I've got the soundtrack for Purple Rain, which is basically a Prince album.
Yeah.
But I was like, dude, I want the other music that's in this.
Yeah.
This is really good.
And with it, they basically shut down First Avenue for 25 days. Mm-hmm. Or it was longer than that, I think. They paid them like $100,000 to shut it down so they could do all the principal shooting and all this. And the mix of people that are in that audience, you see new wave, you see rock and roll, you see goth.
Yes,
you
it's
can
all
tell,
there.
You can tell that they were playing all kinds of different bands, and that club was the melting pot that it was. Mm-hmm. I mean, you had all kinds of music getting played there.
Absolutely, yeah. And that was I was paying a lot of attention to the crowd.
Yeah,
because
you even had hip hop.
Oh, I know, and it was all there. Every bit of it.
The hip hop dancers that are going on.
I know they're dancing up on the catwalks. Yeah, so I know, and that's the whole thing. Is really cool. Of course, that's Prince. So that's a Prince concert. You go to a Prince concert, it's not going to be one type of person there. It's going to be across all demographics. And that was just, God, I wish I'd seen him in concert. I was just. Again, kind of the way that they introduced Apollonia, where it shows her pull up in the taxi pulls up outside of First Avenue Club, or not. I don't think it doesn't pull up outside the club. It pulls up in Minneapolis or whatever, and then in a taxi cab, and she looks at the meter. It's like $37 and some change, which is. In 1984 money, it's 3 times that now.
Yeah.
It's over $100. And the taxi driver kind of looks at her, and then she just bolts.
Yeah.
And it's like, huh? And then you see her, and she pulls money out of her purse. She has money, but then she goes and rents a crappy motel room.
Yeah.
And then she goes to the club, and then she finagles her way into the club, even though she's not supposed to. They're not letting anybody in, and nobody's, the manager's not seeing anybody. And it's a weird, there were parts of this movie that I felt like.
It's like, why Minneapolis? Why not LA?
I know. Well, she
runs away from her small town to go to Minneapolis.
Well, she's from New Orleans.
Oh.
She said that, he asked her, I picked up on that.
Okay.
He asked her where she was from when they go to the lake.
Yeah.
And she said she was from New Orleans. And I forget, I think she says why she left. I think it was something to do with a family or whatever, which, it was funny because on the, when she gave her information, it had her name and where she was staying and her age or her height, and she was 19. That was the age that was on there. I was like, okay, that's
which is funny because when they recorded the 3 songs for this album, that was Wendy's on stage debut with the Revolution, and she was 19.
Yeah. But the waitress that she talks to, the blonde haired girl, there's obviously something going on there between her and the kid.
Yeah.
There has been. And it's like it's completely blown past of, especially because even at the end after he performs Purple Rain, when he leaves and he comes back, he turns around and she's standing there and she's crying.
Yeah.
And she just says hi. And then he just runs right past her and it's like,
ex-girlfriend.
okay, there is obviously something going on here. That they either wound up on the cutting room floor or they just never developed in the script or whatever. You know? And it's just it was a crazy, just like I don't get this. Okay,
I'm gonna leave it as ex-girlfriend.
Probably somebody that he most definitely
like the kid wouldn't run through some girls.
God, yeah, of course. Well, the manager of the club, they made some comment at one point about his dalliances with about how he had to keep. I think if I'm not mistaken, he said something like I had to keep hiring new
waitresses,
new people to work because him and Morris kept running through them or whatever, and that's Morris Day, man. I loved him in this movie, and the thing is he's kind of a villain. Yeah, it's not even a rival. He's like a villain. Yeah, because at the end
he's trying to run.
Yeah,
the kid off
absolutely
out of the club completely.
And that's the thing that everybody keeps, when they're talking about the kid, they keep saying that he's brilliant, but he's not making music for everybody. That's what they kept saying. And you're talking about like he's performing songs like "Let's Go Crazy" or "Take Me With You" or something like that. And they're talking about like, man, you keep playing all this music that's not for everybody. And it's like, oh no. Now I understand "Computer Blue" or "Darling Nikki" or something like that. But even from the very beginning, they're like, he's not packing them in like he used to. I'm like, I don't know why he wouldn't. Yeah. Just. This music's awesome, and then there's the whole thing with the band where there's this Wendy and Lisa have written they wrote Purple Rain, and they want him to listen to it, but he doesn't want to, and
they didn't write the lyrics for it.
They just wrote the music,
for it,
right? And it was there's that scene, because like the waitress again gives him the tape, the demo tape. And then when, is it Lisa or Wendy that comes in when they're all sitting in the dressing room in silence? And
Wendy's already there.
Okay, so Lisa comes in and she's...
guitar player. Which one's a guitar player? Is that Lisa?
I don't remember. It's whichever one. The dark-haired girl. She comes in and she's like, hey, so I heard that you heard our new song or whatever. And it's one of those things where there's obvious tension with the entire band of like... Yeah. Oh God! Is he going to go off? Is he going to?
You never give music to the kid. Mm-hmm. Well, what's funny is that Dr. Whatever and Bobby Z are both sitting over there. Every time they're in the dressing room, they're sitting there next to each other, kind of trying to mind their own business because they know the girls and the kid are going to get
right, and that's and there's that tension all the way through between those three, and it's just
and the bass player, whoever the bass player was.
And having played in several bands over the years and kind of been the
bad guy.
Well,
most of the time.
I guess it depends on how you look at it.
I'm just saying.
Being the person who generally would come with ideas and new songs and stuff, when other people would bring other things in, I have always been open to hear what they brought in, but it better be good, or at least something that we could work on to make better. And that didn't happen that often. So, and not everything I brought in was gold. Okay, I'll fully admit I have notebooks and notebooks full of crap that nobody ever saw. Okay, so just like
keep talking.
It's true, and but that was just kind of one of those things where it's like, hey, you gotta bring. Hey, you and I wrote a really good song together, and that's it's one of those things. It's like, you already had, a couple of a verse and a melody and all that kind of stuff, and so we got together and worked out the rest of it. So, and it's like, if it's good, hey, let's sit down and work on it. I've always been that way. I've always been open about it. I've never been no, we're only going to do my music. We're only going to blah, 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 blah. Don't even start with that. Yeah, tell me how much you brought to the table, okay?
most of your rhythm section, most of your guitar tuning,
whatever.
Verses, choruses, melody bits.
No. I'm just saying that it is one of those. Usually, what happens in a band is you have one or two people who kind of write everything, and then everybody else fills in. And it's not to say that what they do isn't important, because it is very important. It's just because it's a collaborative thing. I know that was it Guns N' Roses? Like they had a formula for songwriting.
It was
credit.
Duff.
Well, but actually it was Axl.
It was Izzy.
It had a formula for. There's music, there's lyrics, and then there's what they called contribution, and it was basically if you wrote the music or the lyrics, it was like in thirds, whoever did that, and if it's say Axl comes in with the music and lyrics already done, that, but if someone contributed something that took the song somewhere else, then that was another third, and that's kind of and I'm like I get that, that's a good way of doing it. I know U2, all of their stuff is I think they may have changed it since then, but I know for the longest time you would look on there and all of their song credits were words by Bono, music by U2. That was the way that they had that. And there's, of course, you get Lennon McCartney and different whatever the way they did their stuff.
Wasn't Queen like equal force?
They did. They just said we're a band. There are other bands that have done that. And I get it. It's kind of it's a tricky situation. It really is when you're dealing, because you want to make everybody happy, but
you got to take care of everybody.
Yeah, and that is true. Yeah, and then you also have those situations like CCR, where John Fogerty was writing everything and was getting all of the royalties. And the guys in the band were like, after a couple of albums, were like, "Hey, we're tired of you making all the money." And he said, "Okay, fine. There's 4 of us here. Everybody comes in and contributes. If we have 12 songs on an album, everybody's got to contribute 3 songs." And kind of let the rest of the band hang themselves on that. So it was, and the 2 brothers, his brother wound up dying with them not reconciling after not speaking for years and years, and he still hasn't reconciled with the other 2 guys in the band. Yeah. And it's kind of one of those. It's like, hey, it's a tricky thing. It's a real tricky thing. I know we're like way off topic here, but it is actually apropos of being in a band is not as easy as everybody thinks it is. That is, in theory, it should be. It should be real easy. Hey, you get together with your buddies who also play music, and you have fun, and you get paid, and then everybody gets along. But that's not how it ever works out. So.
There's usually somebody with some ego. And I'm doing more than everybody else.
And sometimes that's true, and it is what it is. It's if so. I have, because I know. The last band that I was working with, where it wasn't just me bringing stuff in that I'd been working on outside. I'm like, hey, I got this or whatever. We never could get anything going, and it was really. And then once we did start doing that, where everybody was bringing in their contributions, it was so disjointed. Like, we did not have a sound. We did not have there. It was like the music tones were like the tone of the music was just like shifting every go. I mean, it was all over the place. And so that kind of became one of those things where it's like, when I first started playing music with other people, I really wanted to come in and like, hey, we're all just going to be one big band and be happy and all that kind of stuff. And after a little while, you realize somebody has to step up and kind of say, no, this is what we're going to do. And I didn't want to be that person, but I wound up being forced into being that person because nobody else wanted to do it. And then, of course, I've got an ego and attitude problem and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, no, it's because none of y'all are doing anything here. So it's somebody has to be the asshole. So it's just like
keep talking.
Mm-hmm. So
anyway,
but yeah, so we get all of that I just said there. actually plays into this film quite a bit with the whole Lisa and Wendy and the whole band in general, because you kind of seem like you got Bobby Z and the rest of the band who are just wanting to like, dude, we just want to go play the music and have a good time.
Yeah.
And then you got Wendy and Lisa who want to contribute something, but they know it's kind of prickly with the kid because
the kid's got an ego and he's a control freak,
and the kid's also a stellar musician and songwriter. So I mean, it's that is Prince. Come on. How can you say otherwise? I know he's playing a character, but still, I mean, it's like, do you want to be the person to go up to Prince and tell him something he did isn't good? That's so, but yeah, and we find out that Morris. It's funny how no one uses a last name in this. It's just Morris and Jerome and Apollonia and the kid and all this stuff. And Morris wants to put together a girl band. And
his whole theory of putting together the girl band is to have another act to push the revolution out.
Yeah, because what's the manager of
hold on.
First Avenue? What is his name?
I'm trying to pull it up.
Yeah, because he is talking about how they're talking. It's like the kid's not drawing like he used to, and the music's not as good as it once was, and this and that, and Morris tells him,
Billy Sparks.
Yes. What's his name? Is it
Billy?
Is it Billy? Okay.
Yeah.
Again, everybody's using their first names. He's telling Billy, he's like, hey, I've got this idea for a band. And Billy's saying, look, I've already got 3. That would be 4 acts, and I only need 3.
Yeah.
And so that's also Morris jockeying to get rid of his rival.
And this is Apollonia 6 as themselves.
I know that, but there was a Vanity 6, not an Apollonia 6.
Apollonia, Brenda Bennett, and Susan Moonsey.
Well, I wonder if they just like...
Apollonia 6 was created by recording artist Prince, who had also created the group Vanity 6 1 year prior in 1982. But the groups did not exist simultaneously.
Oh, that's what okay. So I knew there was...
After a number of disputes with Prince, Vanity, Denise Matthews, the lead singer of Vanity 6, left the group in 1983 to pursue solo.
Yeah, she wasn't much of a singer.
She went to Motown, is what happened.
Yeah, like I said, she wasn't much of a singer to begin with.
Yeah. But the actress that was supposed to take that part was Jennifer Biel.
It was Jennifer Biel. Yeah. That would have been after Flashdance. And she kind of blew up. So, yeah, he's trying to put this group together. And, of course, he had seen Apollonia and wants to bring her in. And, of course, she only has eyes for the kid.
And once he figures out that she's only got eyes for the kid, he really wants to bring her in. Now he really wants to bring her in because he wants to get under the kid's skin.
Right. And, they have some success. And, of course, it irritates the kid. And they have a dust-up and all that kind of... And, of course, he gets mad at Apollonia. That's the whole thing when she comes in and says, hey, I'm playing a show... and I'm working with Morris, and then he smacks her when they're in his bedroom. It's like, dude, seriously?
Yeah.
Like, this is... I was not expecting that. Again, I as I said, I had not seen the movie in a long time, and I'd never seen it all at one time, so it was kind of a wow.
No, I remembered all of it.
Yeah, and...
also the fights between...
Yeah, I remember the fights between his parents. Yeah, with him breaking them up.
Breaking them up. And, at one point, his dad actually looks at his mother and goes, do you think I'm not doing the best I can here?
Right.
He's like, I would die for you.
Yeah, and that's where he kind of got the line for the song. And that scene when he comes home and his mom's sitting out on the stoop and she's all beat up.
Yeah.
And he goes in to confront his dad and he hears him playing music.
Playing the piano.
Yeah, which was something, when you see that scene between Morris and Billy, and he's talking about, he's really talented, but he's going to screw it up, and
just like his dad,
like his dad did for him and his mom both.
Yeah,
and it's one of those very talented. Oh, that was the other thing. The reason why she went to Minneapolis at first is, and he says, hey, the last 3 acts that have headlined here have gone on to be huge.
Yeah,
and you don't understand why the kid had. And I think that's the whole. Hey, this is the place to go if you want to make it. If you want to, because that's the whole thing that Apollonia tells. When she gets into the club and she's talking to that waitress, she's like, hey, I'm a singer and a dancer, and I really want to play here or whatever. And there's a lot of like, hey, this is the place to be in order to make it. And again, there's a lot of jockeying between bands, between groups and that kind of stuff of who's going to be at the top and this and that and blah, blah, blah. It's like, there's the one when he comes out and he does, what song is it that he does? Is it Computer Blue? Where he only does one song. Like, that's it. Computer Blue. He basically comes on stage, does a song, and then leaves. And they're all like, classic kid, man, comes out, does one song, and leaves. And he's always late to meetings.
Yep.
Even to the point of where, like, whether it's band practice or it's meetings with Billy or any kinds of stuff, and he just kind of comes and goes as he pleases. It's really, again. Have you seen Under the Cherry Moon?
No.
Or Graffiti Bridge, either one. Prince did 2 more movies after this. He got better as an actor. He's not so much in this one. He's reciting the lines. He's not really acting. And I guess he was doing the best that he could. Believe me, there are musicians who have done worse in movies and television before. Did you ever watch New Girl? The Joy.
I know what scene you're talking about.
There's an episode
I've never seen it,
where they go to a party at Prince's house.
Yeah.
And it is hilarious because he's playing himself, and it's so funny. But yeah, of course, by the end of it, everything works out fine. They finally do Purple Rain. And, I was going to say, when his dad's playing piano and he comes in and he starts talking to him and he asks him, he's like, that's really good. He's like, you have to write it down for me sometime. And his dad looks at him and says, that's the difference between me and you. I've got it all in my head. I don't need to write it down. And then later he finds out that it is all written down. He got it in a trunk full of music.
Yep.
And that's kind of him after his dad shoots himself of him.
Well, it was a suicide attempt.
Yeah.
His dad did shoot himself.
Right.
He did shoot himself in the head, but he
lived.
It didn't kill him.
Right.
It probably did one of those things to where he had the gun at such an angle the bullet did the rim run around the skull, between the skull and the skin, which happens quite a bit.
There are people who get shot in the head who survive.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
And he's in the hospital for the whole last half of the movie.
Right. And then he's kind of coming to terms with not turning into his dad.
Yeah.
And finds all the music, and he's kind of going through it, and then that's when he kind of breaks down and starts looking at the music that Wendy and Lisa wrote, and we get to the big scene of them performing Purple Rain.
No, it starts off in the dressing room, and Morris Day and
they just played. They did The Bird. That was
and absolutely tore the place down.
Yep.
And as they're walking back to their dressing room, they're talking all kinds of crap as loudly as possible about the revolution.
Well, they're singing "Let's Get Crazy."
Yeah,
that was the whole, or "Let's Go Crazy."
And as they're walking by, and you can tell the band doesn't know which way this is going to go. Mm-hmm. You can tell the kid doesn't know if he's going to do this or not.
Right.
And they go walking by, and Morris Day comes walking back and sticks his head in the door and goes, "How's the family?"
Right. And
then laughs big time as he's walking off, which is about the most degenerate,
There is a
thing.
really weird scene right after this, though, where the rest of the band walks on, and he stays in the hallway.
Yeah.
And kind of has this look like, what did I just do?
Yeah.
Where you can kind of see that he's got, I shouldn't have done that. That was over the line, a little bit. And then they go out on stage and just tear it down.
Yeah, they blow the roof off of First
They do
Avenue.
Purple Rain, and then they do Baby I'm a Star.
Yeah, Baby I'm a Star.
Yeah, and then did they do 2 or 3 songs?
They did 3 songs.
Yeah, was the other one's Take Me, or I Would Die for You.
Yeah.
That was the last one they did, was I Would Die for You. And Prince is being Prince.
Yeah.
I mean, he is being...
It's a full-on Prince
I mean,
concert. Yeah.
Like I said, the last 30 minutes of this movie is just a Prince concert.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no dialogue, there's no nothing. It is just Prince music.
One song right into the next.
I'm fine with that. And what's kind of cool, they get that last shot, that stupid where he turns around with the backlit and and then it's a freeze frame, and then they do through the credits, they do a medley of all the songs.
Yeah.
Where it's not really a medley. They put them all together basically.
Yeah.
They play snippets of one and then the next all the way through, which was kind of cool. But
Well, there's also a big scene where it's kind of weird because when he first meets Apollonia, he's basically behind her on the street, and he walks right up behind her and goes, "Give me that."
oh yeah,
And she gives him this necklace.
they show she's got a bracelet.
Yeah.
it's on her boot.
Yeah.
like it's on her
And
ankle.
she gives it to him, and he walks off.
I know.
And she's like, "Hey," he goes, "No, you gave it to me. It's mine
Right,
now." And
right.
he walks off, and he walks across the street. And across the street is this music store that's
Right.
got this wild-looking guitar in it.
Yeah, it's the Purple Rain guitar.
It's the Purple Rain guitar.
I forget what exactly the brand is on.
Well, here's the deal.
okay, there you got it. Oh.
It was actually made by Minnesota-based luthier Dave Roussan,
Okay.
who used to work at a music store that Prince used to go into a lot. And one day he walked in, and he came into the shop and announced he was making a movie, Purple Rain, and Prince said the plot of the movie required a very specific looking guitar, and you're going to make it for me. And Roussan has been making those guitars for him ever since.
Nice. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there is, the guitar, and then of course the classic motorcycle that he's sitting on the
Okay.
coaster. And
are we
going
to get into the motorcycle?
Yeah, it's a Honda. What
Hold
you said
on.
it was? You said it was.
It is. It's an 81 Honda-Matic.
Okay.
It's basically a semi-automatic 2-gear motorcycle. It didn't have a clutch, but it still had the gear shifter on it. So he didn't have to mess with the clutch. He just had to turn the throttle and, shift between low gear and high gear.
Okay.
But it had a bunch of customizations.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean,
I forget who the maker of the seat was, but
well, you got to remember Prince was tiny. I
Yeah.
mean, he was like what 5'3", 5'4",
Yeah,
somewhere
something
right
like
in
that.
there. And so, and the thing is several times when he's riding this bike, especially when they pull back from a wide shot, you can see how much bigger this bike is than him. And
where is it? I just had the information here. It was basically a 395cc air-cooled motor,
okay,
2-speed semi-automatic transmission. Custom seats with pink velour inserts.
of course.
It had the sissy bar on it. It had custom handlebars and a custom fairing made by Cutter accessories. And I'm trying to find. Okay, so a guy named Craig Johnson wrote about the fact when he was 12 or 13, his stepfather owned Cutter Motorcycle Accessories in Waterloo, Iowa, and the company made fairings among other accessories and took custom orders. Craig helped his stepfather fill an order for 2 purple fairings that were going to a movie set in Minnesota. He later helped his father make a third one because they crashed one of the bikes.
Well, there was a scene in this when he's on the bike when he's leaving the when he's down at the when she jumps in the lake, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's not that's not Lake Minnetonka, whatever," where he jumps the bike up off of, he's coming up an embankment, jumps it, and I'm like, no, dude, that was Prince on that bike.
Yeah.
That was not a stunt. I was like, that bike is not made for off-road, and he keeps going off-road with it. I'm like, what are you doing?
Well, if you notice, it didn't exactly have street tires.
I know.
They were kind of a all-terrain.
It was
motorcycle.
weird though, but that bike is not an off-road bike. It's just like, okay,
any bike's off-road if you take it
you're
off-road.
right. Yeah, but it's not what you think of as
But
an off-road.
it was
bike.
basically an 81 Honda-Matic.
Yeah.
I think it was like a CB 400.
There's a scene
or something like that.
when he first, I guess it's when he's coming back to the club the next night. Or whatever, and he rides up on the bike and he's got his Telecaster strapped to his back and he's coming through the.
It wasn't really a Telecaster. It was a Horner. It was made by Horner, but it was a Telecaster style guitar.
So anyway, he's riding through and he's like riding next to the crowd. And I was a couple times, I'm like, he just about knocked somebody in the head with the headstock of that guitar.
Yeah.
Like it got really close to somebody's head a couple of times in there.
Yeah.
It's a nice,
but the bike wasn't even a 400cc bike. It was a little bitty bike.
Well, but it's an interesting little weird movie for its time.
Yeah.
It's very, very niche, very very cultish. I mean, it's a cult movie. It really is, And
people who love it, love it.
Yes.
The people who don't.
I have never loved this movie. Like, I watched it last night, and I was like, okay, this movie is about 45 minutes too long for one thing. It's like, it really was. And, if it had just been a Prince, like, concert, I think that would have been much better.
I can say from personal experience, it would have not hold a candle to an actual Prince concert.
But it was fun to go back and rewatch, just as this is really kitschy and the soundtrack, the Purple Rain album.
Yeah.
Oh my God, there is not a bad song on this
Nope.
album at all. And this was one of those when we did our 5 Deep episode years ago about 5 single. This album was on there because it's just one after another, and even the songs that weren't released as singles, like Computer Blue or Darling Nikki,
which Computer Blue is actually one of my
Baby
favorite.
Star. It's like they're so great songs. They're so great songs.
Computer Blue is actually one of my favorite songs off the album. Actually,
Let me just run down the track list here. It starts off with "Let's Go Crazy," "Take Me With You," "The Beautiful Ones." That's another one that was Computer Blue, "Darling Nikki," and then on side 2 you've got "When Doves Cry," "I Would Die for You," "Baby I'm a Star," and "Purple Rain." That is an amazing track listing for an album. It's just like there's not a bad song on here.
Yeah. So actually 3 of the songs on the album were recorded live,
right,
from a concert.
Yeah. Well, you can tell that with "Purple Rain." Is recorded live.
Well, here's what was going on. They were doing a benefit concert for the Minnesota Dance Theater at First Avenue nightclub. It was like August '83, I think it was. And it was actually Wendy's live debut with The Revolution. She was 19, like I said earlier. Drummer Bobby Z, his brother, was an audio guy, and his brother David Z, they actually brought in the recording unit in a truck from Record Plant in New York to record the thing. And they recorded that one, "Baby I'm a Star," and "I Would Die for You" live.
Okay.
And then they did the overdubs at a studio in LA somewhere.
Right.
But there is a video on YouTube of that concert where they show the live performance of
Purple
Rain. When they took the recording and cut it down for an actual single for the album, they cut a complete verse and I think like 2 solos out of the song.
Surprised me, yeah.
You really should go on YouTube and look for this video of where they recorded Purple Rain live, because the solos get so deep. You're just like, oh wow.
I have said multiple times, like I said, I was 10 years old when this album hit.
Yeah.
And I hadn't been listening to a lot of contemporary music for very long. But I remember the first time hearing "Let's Go Crazy" and being like, okay, this is kind of cool, whatever.
Yeah.
And then whenever we got to the guitar solo in the middle, I was like, well, that's pretty good. But it was the ending of the song, when he just like starts going off, that I remember at 10 years old and not playing an instrument or anything at that point. Hearing that guitar solo and being like, this guy's good. Like this is next level stuff here.
Yeah.
And I've always held up the stuff that Prince does on guitar as being next level. And even some of the simple stuff that he does is still next level, because it's like, no normal person would have done it that way. Only Prince would have done it like that. And
something else that people don't talk about with this album is Bobby Z's drumming. There are a couple different songs on here that have double kick drumming on here that really and people don't talk about them because they're kind of muddy, so you don't hear the individual licks. But some of the double kick drumming that's on this album would have rivaled some of the stuff that Lars Ulrich was doing on One. And you remember how everybody threw a fit over the double drumming for One.
That last part of it, that's
I think Darling Nikki has a double kick drum in it. It's just it's like throughout the entire last part of the song. It's like, holy crap.
Darling Nikki is such a weird. Or first off, subject matter is just like, oh, only Prince can do this, get away with it.
Yeah.
But the music itself is just odd.
Well, it's so bare bones.
No, but it's just odd. On top of it all, like who does this?
Yeah.
Prince does this. Okay. And that's kind of the whole, like, yeah, you just have to chalk it up to like, oh, only Prince would do it that way.
And there were a lot of reviews talking about how this is back then, talking about how this was Prince's experimental album. And I'm like, have you listened to Prince at all? Everything he does is
absolutely
experimental.
Absolutely. Prince was the only person for the longest time that had figured out how to successfully mix live, like while you were like actually have the mixing board on stage and mix it that way, because he was very he micromanaged everything musically. And that was the whole thing in '97 when he went on the Crystal Ball tour, that he had all of his stuff that he could do it all on stage.
Yeah.
And it was like nobody did it, because that was always the thing. People say, you can't mix live on stage. You can't do it. It has to be out in front. That way you can hear what's coming through. Well, he figured out a way to do it. And it's kind of become a thing now where a lot of times you will see it. It's like it might not be directly on stage, but it'll be off to the side of the stage rather than being out front.
A lot of the stuff you see off side of the stage is the monitor mixing.
It could be, but you also are not seeing those big boards out front as much any longer. And I don't know if that's...
No, you still do.
I don't know. Last couple of concerts I've been to, I hadn't
they're
seen
just
it, so
they're hiding them better.
Yeah.
But he was, for the show that I saw, which was the retirement show.
Yeah, kind of.
He was doing it in the round.
Yeah.
So
that was like the whole. Was it the musicology tour? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
He was.
That's
he was kind of retiring certain songs
because we got free. He wouldn't sell the musicology album.
You got it free with it, yeah.
If you went to the concert,
you got it there.
You got it at the concert, which I've got, thanks to me and my wife, we've got 2 copies of it.
Which, you know why he did that? Because every ticket is an album, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. But,
yeah,
But the board was, they had to pick an area to put it up, but it was kind of, you've got the flat part, and then you had like the first level of seats, and the soundboard was kind of up in the second level of seats.
Oh yeah, okay.
Where you didn't really notice it. So
okay, maybe I haven't been to a huge concert in a long time like that. The last couple I've been to were at the Ryman, and of course theirs is all the way up in the back.
Yeah,
like that's just where they always have the board set up. So.
It's a permanent setup.
It is. It's like this is where the board goes, and that's
everybody uses the same board. Yep. If you want anything else, you've got to bring in your Series 500 effects and plug into their board.
So, do you have anything else you want to say? Oh, look, we're talking about Prince. We got to talk about Prince stories.
Okay,
there are some great Prince stories out there. Okay.
Like I get to see him live and you didn't.
Well, there's that too. But there's a story. Okay, first off, Kevin Smith, did a documentary with Prince back in the '90s that never saw the light of day.
Yeah,
like still has not seen the light of day. Where he went and he hung out at Paisley Park for a week or 2 or something like that, and Prince would come in and out, and they were doing all this stuff, and it was Prince was a Jehovah's Witness, and he was devout in his beliefs, and even to the point where
later on in his career
he got back into it later on, but he was raised that way, and then he got back into it like later on, and there are stories about people getting that knock on the door on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And Prince is on your front door wanting to, give you a guidepost and tell you about that. It's like, or a watchtower. Is that what it is?
Watchtower.
And
by the way, that's $250, man.
That's $250. That kind of stuff. And it's like, I would let Prince into my house to tell me about God. Sure. What do you want to talk about? Okay, fine. That kind of stuff. But but anyways, Kevin Smith on his DVD, his home DVD, the An Evening with Kevin Smith, there is an Easter egg on there that's about an hour long of him telling the story about going to Paisley Park and the week that he spent there that is absolutely brilliant, and it is an hour-long story for the punchline that is set up brilliantly. Of just like, wow, you were setting us up this entire time. Of like, there was a story about him that, and one of the things that Kevin Smith talked about in that big long story was talking to one of his producers that was there with him, who said, that basically said Prince has lived in Prince land for so long that he doesn't know what happens out in the real world so much. And so he's like, we could be here and all of a sudden he'll come in and be like, it's 3:00 in the morning in Minnesota and I need a camel. And then they have to explain to Prince that it's 3:00 in the morning in Minnesota. There's no way we can get a live camel in here right now. That kind of stuff. It's like that kind of weird whatever. Apparently, there is a story. Prince was of course, he's a song and dance guy. He's a really great dancer and everything. Apparently, he was an exceptional roller skater.
Oh, is this the...
Have you heard this story?
It's like, is it Questlove or who was it? He got invited to go skating with Prince or something?
Prince did one of those, like, there was a local skating rink that he called and said, I want to rent out your skating rink. But this is like 1:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
He's like, I need it now. I'll go pay whatever it is, that kind of stuff. And he invites all these people. I think Questlove might have been one of them.
Yeah.
So they're all like, oh, Prince wants us to go roller skating or whatever. And so it's one of those things that they all get there. Prince doesn't show up for 2 hours. Finally does. He comes in and he does this little like 4 or 5 minute routine that he's come up with. And he does it. Everybody claps. He says, thank you. Gets back in his limo and leaves. It's like... Only Prince can do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. What the whole Charlie Murphy basketball and pancake story.
Yes, exactly. That's another great story. That one. There was also apparently when all of this was happening, when Prince was just blowing up everywhere in 1984. There was a story about I think they were in New York City or something like that, and Prince is standing on the sidewalk with all of his entourage at a bus stop. Okay, and the bus pulls up, and he comes walking in with all of his 15, 20 people, or whatever, in full regalia, like they're dressed like you would be if you were hanging out with Prince. And says he walks on the bus and goes over, and he sees this older lady who's sitting there, and he walks up to her and he goes, "Excuse me, ma'am, can you answer me a question?" She says, "Sure." He goes, "Do you know who Prince is?" She's like, "Oh yeah, I love him. He's got great music." He's, "Thank you very much," and then turns around and walks right back off the bus. And you got to wonder, who was it that said, "Not everybody knows who you are"? And he's like, "Oh, really? I'm gonna prove to you that everybody knows who I am." But there are so many stories like that about him that are out there. Different people who are just like, "Yeah, he just kind of blew through, and that was it." Just.
Him and Bill Murray.
Yeah. There's Bill Murray stories. There's a whole documentary about Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Just show up at like wedding receptions and stuff, bars and everything, and he would just like buy everybody a drink and all this kind of stuff. Yeah.
There's a story about he kidnapped one guy and they spent all night going around to different karaoke bars.
Yeah, I know. It kind of reminds me of that episode of The Big Bang Theory whenever Sheldon met James Earl Jones. Yeah. He's like...
I would totally go ditch Carrie with James. It's not funny anymore, James. Then why am I laughing?
Yeah, I know. It's like that kind of stuff where it's like, I remember years ago, this podcast I used to listen to, I don't even think it's on the air anymore. It was out of North Carolina, I think, or something like that. And there was one of the guys that would come on there. He was only on there for a little while. I remember his name was Trey, and he would come on. He always had these great stories about stuff. He worked at a club, and he was talking about, he was telling the story about Prince.
Yeah.
That Prince had come to town, was playing a concert, and this club that he worked at had been alerted. They're like, "Hey, Prince is going to come here after the concert."
Yeah.
And so You're like, okay. So, they were aware he was going to come in, and they said, after the show was over, that Prince shows up. We got these 2 huge bodyguards that come in with him, and basically he walks the room, like he goes around, like all the way around the room or whatever, and then he goes back, and they had another little, like a green room or whatever.
Yeah.
And while they were walking around the room, he was pointing to different people, all women, obviously, and the bodyguards would tell them, hey, whatever. So there's this long line of all these women that are standing outside this door, and then like the door would open up, and Prince would have 2 of them come in at a time, and they'd be in there for a certain amount of time. Whenever they leave, and then he'd bring 2 more in, and just going through all this. And this guy said that he was walking by, and there was this girl that he knew that was standing in the line, and she was like, "Hey, what's going on?" Whatever. He goes, "You realize you're in the line to have sex with Prince, right?" This is They said after he went through all of the women that he wanted to come in and meet or whatever happened, that they had there was a stage, and that like they literally had a throne that they brought in, that he went up there and sat in, and just like sat there with his cane and just kind of like watched the entire place for about an hour or so, and then it's up and gone. That was it. Just
alrighty then.
Only Prince. That's the whole thing. So you always, it's kind of one of those, like, you tell me a story and you say Prince did it, I'm like, I believe it. I believe it 100%.
If I hit the lottery, I'm not telling anybody. Don't be signs.
There will be signs. There will be. I know. I remember years ago, like 25-ish years ago, whenever the lottery was up at $100 million or whatever it was. It's so funny that we look at that now and we talk about $100 million lottery.
Yeah.
And we're kind of like, oh yeah, it's only at $100 million. It's like, dude, that's still a lot of money. Okay. But at one time, especially considering we've got to $1 billion.
The government takes off. Half.
We've had those huge, like $1 billion and $2 billion ones that have come around in recent years. And it's nothing to go down and see the billboard and it'd be at 5 or 6 or 7 million or 100 million or whatever it is. But this was at a time back in the 90s when we got to $100 million, it was like, oh my God, I can't believe,
Yeah.
But I remember then, like the night of the draw, like we were kind of all sitting around, and of course everybody brought tickets, and what are you going to do, blah blah blah. And it was kind of one of those things, like I said, this was in like 98 or something like that. And I was like, they were like, what are you going to do if you hit the $100 million? I was like, let's put it this way. Guns N' Roses, the original lineup, will play together again. Okay. That was kind of my like, oh no, they will. I will have enough money. I will be able to draw them all together to get together for a night to play in my backyard.
Yeah.
So this is...
Yeah.
So anyways, guys, if you have not, at least go and listen to the soundtrack for Prince, Prince and the Revolution, Purple Rain.
Purple Rain.
Oh, one thing we didn't talk about. This album has one of the most famous B-sides of all time.
Oh?
Well, maybe not of all time, but a really famous B-side from our childhood. Okay, the single for "Let's Go Crazy," the B-side of it is "Erotic City."
Oh,
and that's the only way it's available. It's not on any album. It's only on the B-side.
Gotcha.
Of the "Let's Go Crazy," and it's like, hey, that wound up getting airplay, and then of course George Clinton covered it later, and all that. And it's like, okay, this is kind of cool, But yeah.
But good luck finding the 45.
Yeah. Well, you can get the 12-inch single. I've seen the 12-inch single around quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there might actually be another song on the B side as well, like a remix or something. But yeah, it's the B side of it. So.
Oh, and if you happen to run across this one or Sign of the Times in a record store somewhere and they're decent price, decent shape, just go ahead and pick them up for me.
That one that I have there is a repress from a few years ago, and it's like a purple whatever, But it was kind of one of those things where I was like, you know what? I'll do this. I don't mind. This is not kind of one of those I want to have an original copy of.
But that album and Sign of the Times are probably my two favorite.
This one, and I have 1999, which is an original press, which that's a great album. 1999. It's hard to believe 1999 came out before this one.
Yeah.
Which was another one of those things. This album was so successful that it actually made 1999 rechart.
Yeah.
Like it went back up the charts again, and people started going out and buying stuff.
Oh, and Prince's Black Album. That's actually a pretty good album.
The album that didn't exist for a couple of decades. Nobody wanted. No, it doesn't really exist. What are you talking about? I've heard it. What are you talking about?
I bought it when it came out.
Yeah. And when they finally did release it,
Yeah.
the thing is there were bootleg copies of it everywhere.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
It's got some good songs on it.
it does. It does. You never go wrong with Prince. Even bad Prince is better than most of the stuff on the radio now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just bad Prince is better than most of the stuff that's ever been on the radio. So
Yeah.
all right, since we've gushed for an hour now, and before we get off on some other topic that's completely non-Prince related or Purple Rain, we're going to head out of here. Again, go and check out all of our social media on it's in the show notes. Check us out on Discord. Of course, you can email us, so the email address is down there. And make sure and like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. Go to whatever podcatcher of choice that you use.
I prefer Podcast Guru.
Or, it really does help us if you go to Apple Podcast and give us a review and a 5-star, all that kind of stuff, because
Please, I'm begging.
that stuff really, again, it boosts our visibility and it draws more people in to hey, what's this thing going on over here? And then tell your friends.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
Tell your friends if you like us.
Yeah,
and if you don't like us, tell your enemies.
Exactly. We'll take both of them. So
Yeah. Hey, if you're listening, you're listening. If it's a hate listen, so be it.
yeah, absolutely. So for the Project Gen X podcast, I am Alan Smith,
I'm the other guy, Big Dave.
and we will see you next time.
See ya.
Purple rain, purple rain. Purple rain, purple rain. Purple rain, purple rain. Only want to see you bathing in the purple rain. I never want to be your weekend lover. I want to be some kind of friend.
But hold on.
Yeah, poker game.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. We had a poker game tonight, and I get text messages from people saying they're coming and all that kind of stuff.
Or not coming.
Or yeah. Brody said he's on the way. I'm like, dude, you're like 2 hours early.
Yeah. Tell him to stop and pick up pizza.
Yeah, no joke. Anyway, so